Bruce, what's up?
Just working on them.
Anything specific for Dennis or?
I've talked to Dennis and I've talked to his assistant there, and she's pulled some bridge plans for us, so we get a little more in-depth into it. We don't have any concrete answers yet, but we're looking at it. Need to get a little bit more information back off probably, I think Blattner's the contractor on this, is what I've been told, to see what they're gonna show up with.
Alan would.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think that's right.
So anyway, either off of them or off of the wind people here.
So the haul route has not been specifically identified for sure yet.
We're looking at it.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
identified, now you're looking at it.
Right.
I see.
Yes,
I
all the
see.
bridges, and we've been in contact with Dennis, and he's been in contact with us. Tim's talked to me a little bit about a few of these bridges that you guys has had some problems with. And
So
what we
it's-
can do to
yeah.
fix that.
Under consideration still.
Right.
Okay.
I mean, we're working on everything, we just need to
Yeah.
get some more detail to get to it. So that's what we've got going.
Are you coming over to the office
Yes.
when you get done here?
Yep.
Chris? Okay. I got a couple questions for you on a couple bridge deals.
Okay.
Yeah, Bruce, the only thing Mr. Neal said was he's waiting on word from you guys to move forward, so.
Right. So, we've got it. Bob's been busy on it, Kenny.
Very good.
So,
That's all we can ask.
I see. So those guys are involved in that also.
then we've got.
No offense, by the way, but.
Then you have to have feet on the ground and look at them.
We will, as soon as we get through to know.
I say, once you identify.
Yeah,
all
the
of
first thing you need to do is look at all your big bridges to see what it's gonna take to get across them, even
Right.
if you can,
Mhm.
before you go out and worry about what's in the future.
Yes.
And if something happens that they're not gonna work, and then we'll have to talk to the wind people and, see what they're thinking for an alternative or how they're gonna handle it. Talk to you guys, I mean, out there, as far as that goes. So we'll have a report for you soon.
Okay.
Okay.
We need, like I said, we need to get some loading information either through Blattner or through the wind people. So we've got some good ideas that we need to have, so
Okay.
that's how that works.
Very
Okay.
good.
You've got a lot of little lightweight bridges up there, but if we can get axle spans, they may work. That's one thing a lot of people don't understand. That's
The
why-
what?
that's
Now
why
explain
these-
that to
that's
me.
why- That's why these grain trucks don't fall through.
You got the weight spread out.
You got enough axle spread, sometimes you don't have that many pounds on some.
Per axle.
Per axle, it's on some of these bridges.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's about all I've got, guys.
Yeah, okay.
Plan, so I popped in. Hopefully we'll start to have some information next week.
Okay.
That you guys can look at. Dennis can-
Okay,
Thanks, Bruce.
thank you.
Thanks for coming in.
Contact.
And you guys are supposed to call Mr. Neal back when you're done with Bruce. He called,
Okay.
okay? When I went over to get my seal, that was going on.
Okay.
So if you would give him a call back. I told him that
You
you
want to
would.
call? She said Mr. Deal called while she was over there.
He sent me, probably sent.
He sent you one?
Well, that was him.
Okay, he sent a text, Mary Kay, and what did
Okay.
it say, Dennis?
Says he has no update for today other than
Oh,
waiting on
okay.
engineering items. No need to call unless you have other problems.
Okay, that's fine.
Do we have anything?
Gary?
I'm just gonna say, okay, next week then.
No, I don't have anything. Okay.
Yeah, okay. Okay,
And then Mary Kay, on the agenda, if anybody asks, but David Brenner will not make today.
okay. I've got that crossed off on mine.
We just heard from Mr. Steve. He's on his way, but he's about 10 minutes late. So he is on his way. So good morning. I'm Gary Scobie. Apologize for the delay. Commissioner Tim Burdick, Commissioner Dennis Henry. We're here today for strictly an informational meeting. We commissioners will not be taking action on anything today. We are still considering whether a exploratory committee might be utilized for zoning, Nemaha County, Kansas. Other than that, you all have some questions that were submitted and answered. Does everybody have a copy of that? Apparently do. At this time, I will recognize Gary Steeth and have him talk to us. And I'm sure at some point in time, open the floor for questions. So, thank you for coming, Gary.
Sure. I'm Gary Stith. I'm the director of the Flint Hills Regional Council. It's a council that's made up of 26 local jurisdictions, covers 7 counties, from Potawatomi County and Riley County south down to Chase and Lyon County. We also have a few members outside of those counties. Clay Center is a member, Chapman is a member, Harrington is a member. So they don't have to be in that 7-county area to be a member. What we do is we get grants for various kinds of projects in our region. Over the last 7 years, we've brought in over $7 million in grants. The members pay dues based on 60 cents per person in the population of that jurisdiction. For counties, it's the unincorporated area of the county that they would pay the dues on the population for that area. The reason I was asked to come is because we did a comprehensive plan for Wabaunsee County just recently. And I know that there's been an effort to reach out to Wabaunsee County recently because Wabaunsee County does not permit wind farms, and I understand that's a concern here in this county. The comprehensive plan that we did specifically has a policy recommendation that there not be any wind farms. And actually, they had a previous comprehensive plan that also had that same policy statement in it. So it's not a new policy for Wabaunsee County, but it has been reaffirmed in the comprehensive plan that was just completed. The reason they did a comprehensive plan, and there needs to be a comprehensive plan, is because state statute says if you're going to do zoning, you have to have a comprehensive plan. And the comprehensive plan is a policy document, it's not a law, but then the zoning has to be based on the policies that are outlined in the comprehensive plan. So if you wanted to eliminate wind farms, you would need to say that in the comprehensive plan, and then you could develop zoning that would restrict wind farms, if that was an objective that the community agreed to as a part of the comprehensive planning process. The process in Wabaunsee County, it's a bigger county geographically than Nemaha. It has 7 incorporated towns. The county actually manages the zoning for those towns. By that I mean that the planning board has members from each of the towns, and then there's a staff person who's part-time, and he wrote this document up, and I haven't even had a chance to read this document yet. But so I'm not really here to talk about zoning per se, but I have about 43 years of experience in planning, and so I know a lot about zoning, but that's not the reason I'm here really. If you're going to do zoning, you have to have a comprehensive plan. And one of the county commissioners, I think it was Dennis, asked me, he said, well, even if we don't do zoning, would a comprehensive plan be useful? And I think it would, because it outlines what the aspirations are for the community and what you hope to accomplish and how you might go about accomplishing that. It can deal with a lot of different issues besides land use. It could deal with infrastructure, it could deal with recreation, it could deal with development in the towns in Nemaha County. So it can have a lot of functions, even if you don't decide to zone Nemaha County. I'm not that familiar with the towns in Nemaha County, so I don't know if they already have zoning or not. Towns can zone independently of what the county does. And in some cases, you can have 3 miles extraterritorial jurisdiction around those towns, which is the case well, we did a comprehensive plan for Council Grove down in Morris County. And one of the things they wanted to include in their comprehensive plan is the 3 miles outside of Council Grove to be able to control that by zoning. And that was because Morris County was not zoned, and it's still not zoned. So you can do different things in comprehensive plans, but you can't do zoning without a comprehensive plan, according to state statute. A comprehensive plan would take about 9 months. I think that's what we did. Was it more than that? Janet's really the one that did it, and
It was a year, it was over a year.
over a year. Okay. The schedule kind of depends on the amount of public participation, and we want to encourage public participation. We had public meetings in every community in Wabunsee County, which was no small trick because it's a big county, and it takes time to just drive there. And it'll be that way here too, as we found out this morning. We were running late because they're resurfacing 36 just this side of Frankfurt. I had to stop for about 15 minutes, but public participation in the process is critical, and we would have a series of meetings throughout the county to talk about what the communities want to see in the comprehensive plan. The first thing we would ask if you want to do a comprehensive plan is that the county commission would set up a steering committee. And I always indicate that the most important job of the steering committee is to make sure that we don't put something in the comprehensive plan that's stupid. So they watch over the process pretty carefully, and we just want to make sure that what's in the comprehensive plan really reflects the values and the goals of the community, and that it's accurate information. And so the steering committee helps us make sure that we do that. They also help us figure out what's the most effective way to reach out to the communities, because they know the communities better than we'll ever know them. And so they help us in that regard. So that committee meets monthly during the process. So it's a little bit of a commitment on their part, but it's I think, an important part of the process. You don't have a planning board, do you?
No.
No. Usually a comprehensive plan goes first to review by the planning board, and then it would go to the county commissioners to adopt. You don't have a planning board here. I don't know if you want to create a planning board just for that purpose, but if you did do zoning, you need to do a planning board, create a planning board as part of the zoning process. So I guess that's pretty much the area that I wanted to cover. I'd be glad to answer any questions if anybody has some. Yes,
I represent the city of Whitmore, located in the southeast corner of Nemaha County. We are in the process of preparing a comprehensive plan. One question I'd like to ask is, if the county then passes a comprehensive plan, or not a comprehensive plan, does it supersede what we have done, or how do you match the two?
Potawatomi County is going through a comprehensive planning process right now. We're not doing it. They hired a consultant to come in and do it. And many of the towns in Potawatomi County already have comprehensive plans, and they're just basically inserting those comprehensive plans for those towns into the county plan. And that would be what I would recommend here.
One more question along the same line. We're just a mile from another Jackson County. What we propose to do in Nemaha County, if approved, does it also, how do we apply it in Jackson County? Do we have to keep the commission involved also?
If you're talking about zoning, and you're talking about extraterritorial zoning that
Extraterritorial.
would go over
We already
into
have-
Jackson
We already
County.
have zoning. We want an we're looking for extraterritorial.
Yeah. Zoning in Jackson County would have to go through a process that would involve the Jackson County Commission.
I think, Bob, you're asking though, Wetmore's, he's only a mile from Jackson County. how can they get the extra 2 miles? Is that what you're asking in Jackson County?
I am, but that's what we will ask. We're looking for the, trying to reach the 3 miles. While we're in this moratorium, we can accomplish that. We want to overlap into Jackson County, and I believe I can accomplish that also. I just want to make sure that I don't leave somebody out that I need to keep into the.
I mean, I think you have to have Jackson County's permission to do the extraterritorial zoning, but the control of the zoning action itself would have to be through your own planning board.
Well, in this case, Jackson.
If Jackson County is not zoned.
Yes, it is.
Oh, it is zoned?
Yes, Jackson County is zoned, and so that's why I
I'm
believe.
not. There's more about zoning that I need to know than I do. I'm not certain that if they're zoned, you can exercise extraterritorial zoning into Jackson County.
Well, I
You
have
need
a
an attorney
member
to
of-
tell you
I have
that.
a member of, probably of the Jones, that it actually sits on our council, but believes that we can't.
Yeah, I mean, I was just giving you my opinion, which is
All right.
pretty uneducated at this point about that state law. You ought to talk to an attorney.
We've got plenty of attorneys like this.
Yeah. Yeah, sometimes you have to have them though. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
You mentioned the time frame when putting together a comprehensive plan to being a year plus. Can you give us an idea what cost would be to the county for putting that together?
Well, we did the one for Wabunsee County for $50,000. There's a little more distance for us to travel up here, and we have to pay for travel and time. And if we're going to include towns, which we did in Wabunsee County, you've got a few more towns than I think Wabunsee County does. What do you got, 9? Of course, some of them may have their own plans already.
I think there's seven incorporated.
7.
Are you talking about just incorporated towns?
Yeah, incorporated towns. Now, in the Wabunsee County plan, we also included a section for each incorporated town, but there were some other unincorporated areas that had development that they asked us to include in the plan, just talking about that specific area. I mean, that might happen here too. So I'm thinking maybe 55 to 60, somewhere in there. Jana was supposed to be sitting at a table with me and kicked me under the table, saying what I just said. We need to think about it a little bit, but it's going to be somewhere in that range.
Was there a grant available to help the county?
There was in Wabunsee County, because it's in the Flint Hills Economic Development District, and we have a planning grant from the Office of Economic Development Agency. It's a federal grant, but you're not in our Economic Development District, so we can't use that grant funds to help you. Sorry.
Could you better explain to us the agricultural exemption?
Well, I was kind of looking at what David wrote, and he knows more about that than I do, but you're not required through the zoning to have any kind of control over agricultural activities at all if you don't want to. And so in Wabunsee County, basically I think what he's saying here is that agricultural uses are pretty much exempt. But we didn't write their zoning regulations. We reviewed them a little bit, but they do have things, and a lot of counties do this, including Riley County, doing zoning to protect agricultural activities, because more little houses out here on 10-acre lots that are out there start kind of having an impact on agricultural activity, because people that live in those little houses on those 10-acre tracts start complaining about dust and noise and strange things that animals do, and that can be a problem for agricultural activities. So in Riley County, they have some pretty restrictive regulations about small parcel development in the county. And you could do that here too as a protection for agriculture. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
not an attorney by any means.
It's okay, neither am I.
Article 29 of the Kansas statutes addresses planning and zoning. And
Right.
I might just read a section out of that in regard to a question that was asked about exemptions, ag exemptions. The right of a landowner to pursue agricultural activities in Kansas counties free from zoning restrictions is carefully protected by statute.
Okay.
By enacting such statutes, the legislature intended to spare the farmer from governmental regulations and not to discourage the development of the farming industry.
Yeah.
So
So
basically,
basically, in the whole
you can't
state.
touch
Yeah.
ag throughout the
But
state.
you could include things in the comprehensive plan and then your zoning to help protect agricultural uses. If that's something.
To increase the protection
Right,
that
right,
it already has.
yeah. Any other questions?
Did you, Gary, you wrote the plan for Wabunsee County, was that in conjunction with the steering committee?
Yes, it was.
Who picked those
The
folks?
county commission. The first list they sent us was all men, and I sent the list back and said, can't you find some women that could get involved in this? And so they did.
And how many was on that committee? Well, I think I saw that somewhere.
Yeah, it's in the front page, the list of the people is in the plan that they have
I
there.
think it was 12.
12, yeah. I mean, the size of it is dependent on what you think needs to be a part of the process and represent stakeholders in the process. So
Not dictated by,
No, it's not dictated.
not dictated by statute.
Not dictated by statute. That's just a part of, we think it's important to have representatives from the community involved in overseeing the process that we do. It needs to be the community's plan. It's not my plan, it's not Dan's plan, it's your plan. And that group helped us make sure that it was their plan. And by there, I don't even mean just that committee, but Wabunsee County.
The committee you're talking about would be separate from the planning committee, or the planning
Yes,
commission.
yeah, exactly. Wabunsee County has a planning and zoning commission, and there were a couple of people from that commission on the plant steering committee, but it was a different group of people.
This will go for the next 20 years,
Yeah,
unless updated.
right, yeah, I mean, plans should have an expiration date on them, They don't, but they should. A lot of that's a function of, well, how much growth has changed, how much people's values have changed, what conditions in the community have changed. So, yeah, there's something that needs to be done. Manhattan just finished updating theirs about 2 years ago, and that plan was 13 years old. So, this plan isn't going to last for the rest of the history of Nemaha County.
The original comprehensive plan in Wabunsee County was adopted in 2004, is that correct?
In Wabunsee County?
Yes.
Yeah, yes, it was.
And you rewrote that plan in the last couple of years.
Last year,
2009.
It was this year. So that was about 15 years ago. And when you've got a comprehensive plan in place, like Wabunsee County did, the first thing we did was go through the process of what has changed, and we do what we call a trends report, where we look at historical changes in demographics and economy and social things, and put information together about the county so that we all start from a baseline of the same information, and then we go from there. But we went through all of the 2004 goals and objectives, and to ask, okay, do these need to be changed? And some of them were changed, some of them were reaffirmed, such as the no wind farms thing, because that was in the 2004 plan.
You still went through the same process. You had another steering committee that you worked in conjunction with to rewrite the plan, the original plan. That took a year.
Yeah, we weren't involved in the 2004 plan.
Right. But you,
Right. Our organization was created in 2010, so we're not that old an organization for, as regional planning organizations go. I think like North Central, which is over in Beloit, has been around for like 40 years.
Gary, do you know how many counties in Kansas are zoned?
Well, I thought somebody told me one time that there were only 5 that weren't zoned, but that's just what somebody told me.
there's 52 counties in Kansas that are zoned, I think, I'm correct in saying. 52 or 3, did you know, Mary
I
Kay?
don't know.
It's right at half, is all I really know for sure.
Okay, then whoever told me 5 weren't zoned was wrong.
What other means outside public meetings do you use to gain input from county citizens?
That's a good question. We do surveys. We go to public events with a paper copy of the survey. You can also do it online. We do interviews of stakeholders. Again, the steering committee gives us a list of people they think we ought to talk to. Property owners, major businesses, education people, people they think ought to be asked about what's going to be the future of the county. And then the public meetings, and we go through quite a process at the public meetings of having public input. Part of that's going to include what we call a SWOT analysis. SWOT is strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And so we ask people at the public meetings to help us identify what those are. So it's just a tool planners use to get information from the public. But that's another part of what the steering committee would do, is tell us what they think would be the most effective way to get input from the communities. Other questions?
I think my next question would be more directed to the commissioners. Do you plan to extend the moratorium?
Yes.
That's unprecedented.
It currently goes through end of October. We anticipate extending it, yes.
In Wabunsee County, the county planning board handles all the town zoning things. And so zoning requests in the towns go through the county planning board, but then they go back to the town council for final adoption. That's just the way to do it in Wabunsee County. You don't have to do it that way here. If you've already got a planning board and you're doing your own zoning in the towns, that could continue. I mean, unless there's a decision to change that, but that would be up to the towns themselves. So zoning in a town is controlled by the town. In terms of staffing and the planning board in Wabunsee County, the county planning board does that. I've never run into another county where that's been the way it's been done, but it is a way you could do it. Any other questions?
So Gary, let me make sure I have the process correct. In Wabunsee County, as an example, you and your staff, along with the steering committee, went through the process and submitted a comprehensive plan to
The Planning and Zoning Board.
the Planning and Zoning Board, which was already in place.
Yes.
They took action on that, whether to or not adopt such plan.
Right. And then they sent it to the county commission, and the county commission adopted it.
In this case, you and your steering committee submitted a plan, the Planning and Zoning adopted. They recommended to the county commissioners to adopt that plan without any changes.
Right. I mean, the planning commission, or the county commission could have made changes if they wanted to. I mean,
Right.
they have that right. While the planning board does recommend the plan, they also adopt the plan. It's one of the few things that planning boards I'm on the Manhattan Urban Area Planning Board. And it's one of the few things that the planning board itself actually adopts. Usually the planning board's actions are to recommend to the governing body to adopt something. But in the case of a plan, they adopt it and then they send it with a recommendation to the governing body, and the governing body adopts it. But the governing body has the right to make changes if they want to.
Again, this is a standalone comprehensive plan. Has nothing to do with any zoning laws that might be implemented at a later date.
Well, the zoning laws that would be implemented at a later date need to be based on the policies outlined in the comprehensive.
Okay. It's used as a
guide.
A baseline, I was gonna say. Okay.
Yeah. Right. So if you, and I've seen instances where people think it's necessary to change the comprehensive plan because there's an opportunity comes up that they, that they want to see happen, and they actually go back and amend the comprehensive plan and then go through a zoning change for a project. And the comprehensive plan by state statute, again, is supposed to be reviewed by the planning board annually. It doesn't mean they have to do anything to change it or anything, but they're supposed to review it on an annual basis. In the Manhattan case, which I'm very familiar with because I'm on the planning board, usually it's a matter of looking at what recommendations in the plan have been addressed and what recommendations in the plan need to be addressed, and we kind of help the staff set priorities for their work program for the next year. But then Manhattan has a significant zoning staff and planning staff, and they do a lot of stuff in-house rather than hire consultants to do it.
Is this document the same as a comprehensive land use agreement? And that, and direct that to,
Well, it does address land uses, and it is supposed to be comprehensive, but I've never used the term comprehensive land use agreement.
okay.
In the Wabaunsee plan, we put together this trends report I spoke of, and I asked the steering committee, is there anything we've left out? And they said, yeah, you haven't addressed anything about our history and our cultural things in the county, and could you go back and add that? And we did. So again, part of our job is to make sure we're addressing things that are important to that county and that community. So basically, they're our boss for a while. Yes, sir.
So if you needed a state permit for a livestock facility, would you have to get approval of the county or before you go for the permit?
I don't think so.
Don't think or know so?
I don't think so. I don't know for a fact because I've never had to deal directly with agricultural controls. But if the state regulates something like that, I think it would take precedent over county regulations.
And it looks like that's kind of what this David Griner indicates in his language as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I wish I'd had a chance to read this before. David's a sharp guy. But he's also a rancher. The reason he couldn't be here today is because he had to round up some cows. And so he only works part-time for Wabaunsee County. But he's been there a long time, he knows his stuff. Any other questions?
So Gary, if we was to enlist your help or go ahead and do a comprehensive plan, which I feel would be one of our first steps before even we go decide on zoning or not, and get that step, what is our process timeline to get started? What is?
Well, if you want us to help you do it, I don't think we can do it until after the first of the year. And I have to tell you that I'm retiring before the end of the year. So they're in the process of looking to find some staff to support it, but I think whatever happens, they would have the capacity to help you.
After the first year. But the sooner the better.
So the regional council would have to have an agreement with the county commission to to do that with me, I agree with that line. You know, and I can send you a copy of what we've used in the past. But we have to have basically a contract.
Are you saying we would be required to be a member of this council?
No,
Not necessarily?
not necessarily. Yeah, I mean, you could if you want to.
I see.
You'd be welcome to be a member. We might be able to give you a little discount, I don't know. If Jana were sitting up here, she'd be kicking me right now too, but. I actually worked with someone years and years ago, and I was saying something, and they literally did kick me under the table, so. And since I'm leaving, you can't, I won't be in control, so. Any other questions? But I feel pretty certain that we would have the ongoing capacity to be able to help.
Hey, Gary.
Yes, sir.
You had mentioned, and it sounds like throughout this process, that we could get a comprehensive plan in place, but then the question of two-pass or not two-pass zoning still exists.
Right.
So you kind of touched on this earlier, but can you give us maybe some examples or reasonings why having a comprehensive plan in place is good for the county regardless?
Yeah.
Or maybe not good?
Well, I'd never stand up here and tell you a comprehensive plan isn't good, unless it's one that somebody did and they just wrote it up and said, here you go. And it didn't involve the community, but that I've never seen that happen. But a comprehensive plan can be used for a lot of things. It could talk about economic development and try to identify those kind of opportunities. It can identify infrastructure needs in both the county and the towns for 10 years, that kind of time frame. So that, and a lot of times that kind of information, the fact that you've thought through things and included in a comprehensive plan can be useful in asking for grants or applying for grants. So it can be useful in that regard as well. It identifies the aspirations of the community. And someone one time asked me, well, why are you including things in the plan that's not going to be done by the city? And I said, because the plan should be used by more than just the city. It ought to be used by people in the business community and property owners so that they know what the community wants or what the community needs and can make business decisions even based on what's in that plan. Or people buying property, they can look at the plan and they can know then what might be happening around that property or in that area, around their property. So it should be useful for other reasons than just zoning, and it should be useful to other people than just the governing body.
In Wabunsee County's example, Gary, you wrote the plan, adopted by the planning and zoning, and ultimately adopted by their commission. Have you ever seen a zoning regulations voted on by the public?
No, I have not, but that doesn't mean it can't or it doesn't happen.
You've never seen it?
I've never seen it. Usually the public, if they do vote on a question, and at least in the jurisdictions I've worked, it's related to financial things like raising taxes or sales taxes, or some places even having the ability to issue a bond for certain things. But I've never seen in a jurisdiction where there was an election or a vote on a zoning matter. Now, the first time they did the plan of Wabunsee County, they did a very extensive survey where they sent it out by the mail to, they said, everybody in the county. And so that question had been, because it was so controversial, that they wanted to make sure that everybody had the ability to make sure, let the governing body know what their position was.
The 2004 plan specifically?
Yeah. We didn't do that extensive a survey in the 2019. But there seemed to be a strong, at least on that issue, still a strong feeling that wind farms shouldn't be allowed. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
So if I understand right, the survey process that's followed in the comprehensive plan was really the means of gathering the public input into whatever issue
Right.
that they're concerned about,
Yeah.
so that that information can then be
Exactly.
forwarded to the planning commission, to the county commissioners, et cetera.
Right. If we did a survey, it would be a lot broader than just asking about wind farms. I mean, if you can send in examples, if you like, of the kind of surveys we've used in the past.
That would be great.
We do it on paper, and we also do it through SurveyMonkey. There's some people that aren't too good at using computers.
I'm looking at, I can't remember, that would be something would be nice to have. A copy of those
It's in the
surveys.
back, it's in the appendix of this plan, the results of the survey.
That
So the
one.
question.
I see, okay.
Yeah, both the survey and the results from the survey are in the back. That's right. I forgot, it's in the appendix.
I would just add, we have a series of open houses. We have 3 open houses, and in Wabunsee, we held them in 3 different communities, each open house. So we have a lot of open houses to get public input,
Yeah.
meetings, as well as a survey and stakeholder.
In a community, we'd have probably 4 open houses, but in a county, it was like 3 times that many, so that we could get around to different parts of the county. So,
Is that something prior to the year that it takes to
No,
build
it's
the
a part
plan?
of the year.
Or that is part of the
yeah,
year?
right. The 4 workshops deal with, well, the first one is doing kind of that SWOT analysis I mentioned, and then the other ones start dealing with reviewing goals with the community and then looking at strategic strategies. And so there are different things we do in the workshops through the process. And finally, we have like a draft document that can be out there. People can look at it. We use a website. We use Facebook as a way of reaching out to people and get quite a bit of following on those platforms.
Other questions for Gary? Don?
Here, another question.
Yes.
In regard to the original 2004 comprehensive plan that was done, somewhere along the line, it seems like they received some sort of state grant to help with that cost of that plan. And I guess I was just wondering, are you aware of any other funding sources to help with comprehensive plans?
No, I wish there was, because I think comprehensive plans for communities are important. And for especially from smaller communities, it's a difficult stretch for them to come up with the resources to do a plan. And well, Nemaha County is not in an economic development district. There are 7, I think, economic development districts around the state, but this north tier and northeast corner doesn't have one. So that's where we get grant funds to help the people in our 7 counties do comprehensive plans. We've done one for Council, and these are all on our website, but Council Grove, Onega, Westmoreland, Wabunsee County. We're in the process of doing one through a different grant source for Riley, Ogden, and Wakefield. They're around Fort Riley, and we got a Department of Defense grant to do what's called a joint land use study around Fort Riley. And then we got another grant to implement the recommendations, and those recommendations, including doing a comprehensive plan for the small communities around Fort Riley. But I'm not aware of any other grant program that's out there that would be available with Nemaha.
Did you seek counsel and actually, you did the surveys, you heard the public meetings, you heard folks speak? Did you seek counsel to actually write that, to say what you wanted it to say?
Yeah, the interviews and the survey, that's all approved by the steering committee before we send them out to the public. And sometimes they add questions they think are important, sometimes they take out questions, they think, well, nobody cares about that, so we take it out, but the steering committee plays a really important role. It's very helpful to us. I wouldn't do a plan without having that kind of group to help guide us as we go through the process. And you know, while Wabunsee County's had 12, you could do, I worked with an advisory group a long time ago, and I don't recommend this, but it had 40 members, and our biggest problem was finding a place to meet. But, you know, whatever you all think is important to make sure that the stakeholders in the county are represented and can be involved.
Are those meetings subject to parliamentary procedure? Do you have to have a quorum for those?
No, they're not. We haven't in the past. They're open to the public, so transparency, I think, is important, but no, we haven't had a chair even for most of them. They could if they wanted to organize it.
I see.
They could have a
You
chair.
didn't?
No. We want a chair for Wabunsee County. I think only one group, I think Council Grove thought they wanted to chair. And a lot of times for towns, we also rely heavily on the city clerk for kind of helping us organize things. Because usually they have a place for us to meet and that kind of thing. In fact, the Wabunsee County clerk was on our steering committee. If you're looking for work. Yes, sir.
Yeah, just, and I'm not sure I always hear everything right, but there a little bit ago when you were talking about planning, you were talking about goals within our infrastructure. I guess I have never thought about it that way, so our planning could be whether we want to keep everything like it's been for the last 75 years or whether we want to make plans that for business, industry, whatever, to draw young people back. I mean, there's a vast.
Yep. And there's a lot of room in between those 2 points.
Okay.
You know, some places don't want growth, some places want slow growth, some places would take all the growth they could get. And trust me, just because you want growth doesn't mean you'll get growth.
Sure, right. But that could be a goal.
Yeah, it certainly could. And all the goals of a plan don't get realized immediately.
Sure.
I mean, the comprehensive plan for Manhattan was done 2, maybe it's 3 years now. And there's still goals in there that haven't been touched yet, but sure, we're going through a process of trying to approach those. And of course, they have staff to help do that.
Okay.
You know, there's some goals you may have that you never realize, but it's still an aspiration.
Other questions for Gary?
If you compare a county with a minimal zoning regulation, just in terms of scope and size of what it's regulating compared to another county that has a lot of regulation, is the process of completing this plan the same for both of those, or would the comprehensive plan be any smaller?
No, I think that, like I said, the comprehensive plan should deal with more than just zoning or land use issues. And so, how much you regulate land use, or how little you regulate it, or if you don't regulate it, I don't think that's going to make a difference in the size of the document, what the document covers. Shouldn't anyway, in my mind.
Anything else? There's a hand, Gary.
My question is actually more for the commissioners, or maybe have a comment. Just in listening to you talk, Gary, I mean,
sounds to me like there's a lot of positives in approaching a comprehensive plan, if nothing else, just from the sense of looking towards the future and preparing, that sort of thing. Which I think most people would agree is probably pretty good. I'm guessing that a number of the people in this room probably came in here today with the Z word on their mind, zoning. And obviously, you kind of predicated that you're not a zoning expert or something like that. So my question, I guess, to the commissioners, comprehensive plan aside, if it's something that you're considering doing, I think that's, my personal opinion, it sounds like that's a pretty good way to be forward-looking. But if it comes to zoning, if that's really kind of what's on the back of your mind as well, I guess my personal request would be that you would consider bringing in somebody like Dave Griner, is that his name? And having him talk about the zoning portion, if that's a concern of yours as compared to this comprehensive plan. So that would be my comment about that. So that way you would have, and the public would have some good information about the zoning portion of their concerns. And maybe just a direct question to you and Gary. Dave Reiner, can you give us a little bit of background on him? I mean, we have this document in front of us that we're reading, but can you tell me what you know about him?
Well, he's been working with Muncie County for quite a long time. So it's been quite a while that he's been working, but he works part-time. Like I said, he's a rancher, and he's the one that issues permits, building permits.
So he's directly involved with the zoning process?
Right, he is. Effectively, he's the staff for their county zoning board, planning and zoning board. So he's the one that brings things to them when people apply for things and it doesn't quite conform with the zoning regulations. They extensively use a process called the conditional use permit. They use that process much more than any other jurisdiction I've ever seen, but that's the way they do it, and it seems to work for them. In addition to David, at some point you're going to need to have a zoning attorney help you. I don't write zoning regulations. I've worked with zoning regulations for 43 years, but I don't write them. And it needs to be done by somebody who really knows the law and knows the kind of language you need to use. So, I would never offer my services to help you write a zoning ordinance. Any other questions?
So you would get this comprehensive plan put together, then you go to the zoning attorney.
Yeah, and the parts of the comprehensive plan that address zoning, it says in there, then that attorney would help you write up an ordinance you'd have to adopt that implements what the recommendations are in the comprehensive plan. And if that means you do just a few things you want to regulate, or if you want to regulate all kinds of things, you want to just regulate incorporated towns that don't have zoning and the towns agree to that, I mean, whatever. And you don't have to implement everything that's in a comprehensive plan. While the comprehensive plan for Council Grove said they wanted extraterritorial zoning control, I think they didn't exercise any of that until just recently. So, and that's been 4 years ago, 5 years ago, that we did the plan.
So the ordinance, you're telling me, that's what gives an enforcement officer his or her muscle, if you will.
Yep. If somebody doesn't conform with the zoning regulations, they can be taken to court as part of the process. But yeah, you have to enact the zoning as a law.
Right.
And that law needs to be based on the recommendations in the comprehensive plan.
Other questions?
Well, I want to thank you for inviting us to come up. And if there's a way we can help you, in whatever capacity, let us know.
I'll let you know before you retire.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
So I'll speak for myself, and someone alluded it. I look at this as the first step in a long process. I would anticipate, hopefully, and Tim and Dennis, you guys chime in, potentially getting David up here might be the next step possibly, see if we couldn't solicit his services, if you will. I think we need a zoning attorney to look at that, come and speak at some point in time. Don't know who that might be.
We're in the process. David acted like he possibly could make it next week or the week after. And I've got a couple of other people that are very possible.
We will certainly keep you updated, should we hear anything, for anybody else to come in and talk.
Mr. Scobie, on the extension of the moratorium, how far out are you looking?
Oh, I would say,
A year, 2 years, 4 years?
I would say 6 months with the opportunity to renew again at any given time. Betty, what have you heard? Do you have any comments? Come on, Betty.
No, I've come to learn today, like everybody else.
We will reconvene upstairs. We have some more work to do. Thanks for coming, folks.